Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new series we are calling Shift Happens, where we hope to gain the tools we need to create meaningful and sustainable change within ourselves, in our homes, and our areas of influence. This webinar is a collaboration between the Eunoia Empowerment Group, an organization that seeks to transform communities through goodwill and well-being. Creo Early Learning Partners, a CPD provider for professional teachers accredited by the Professional Regulation Commission. Forestdale Educational Consultancy, a provider of training and curriculum development services. And Global Image Management, a leading image consulting and personality development company in the country. My name is Mike. I have the privilege of being the president of the Eunoia Empowerment Group, and today I have the enormous pleasure of being your facilitator and co-learner. You know, ever since we began offering webinars to the private and public sectors of education, we have received so many heartwarming messages and positive energies all throughout our webinars. And so it is always wonderful to connect with all of you. You know, our goal for this webinar is to engage in a high-spirited conversation about purpose, meaning, motivation, and positive relationships. But first, if you have attended our previous webinars, you already know that we like to start with something that puts us in the right frame of mind. In our last webinar, we had a 10-minute breathing and meditation exercise. But today, I am excited to introduce you to a functional fitness and holistic lifestyle expert. He is the founder of holyfit.ph. He is also an in-demand resource person for corporations to talk about well-being. Please welcome Coach Jose Villablanca.
Hello.
Hi, Jose.
Everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And you know, the reason why I invited you to join us is really because I think you're one of those who have found their purpose. You work with individuals, you work with companies to give them a better understanding of how to take care of their bodies, or is it more than that?
Yeah, you could say bodies, right? That's what holistic means. So Holy Fit is short for holistic fitness. So bodies can include like physical, emotional, mental bodies, even spiritual bodies. But to be honest, I'm not really comfortable because I'm not that spiritual.
I can be spiritual for the both of us. That's fine. Okay, so Jose, take it away, please.
Thank you. So guys, we're just going to get started. I just want to show you where I am right now. Isn't it beautiful? I wish I said it was my backyard, but it's not. So I'm at the farm right now. So just taking some R&R. We all need to rest and recover. So basically, I truly believe this. When you're trying to be a better person, a better professional, I truly believe that there's that mind-body connection. And in order to have that mind-body connection, in order to have this edge, right? I always say you have to stay physically fit because then that makes you emotionally stable and mentally sharp. So let's warm up for this webinar. I'm here to lead it and start energizing you guys. So let's just So what you see here is what we really want to do. I was just sitting here for a few minutes waiting to get started, and I already felt that on my back. So I know I look young, but I'm actually 35 years old, and I really stretch a lot now. So let's, if you're seated right now, let's just get standing, all right? I feel like I'm talking to myself. So let's go to the next slide, please. Hopefully you're following along and not just watching me and eating chips right there, okay? So when you're seated all day, what you want to do is stretch tight muscles. So for example, when I'm on the computer, I look like a T-Rex typing like this, right? So we're going to reverse that movement. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Hopefully, again, you're joining me here and not just eating chips or chicharron or chocolate or having an alcoholic drink, because then you need to share with me. All right, next slide, please. I think I kind of know what the next slide is, so I'm just going to go along while I wait for that. So let's just put your arms above, all right? Show your belly button like we are here. Reach up as high as you can and move on to one side. Deep breaths, inhale. If you show your belly button, that's extra points. Now let's reach the other side. Big inhale, right? Okay, great. And then what we want to do is twist as well. Inhale. The bigger the belly button, the better, right? Now to the other side. Just putting a bit of humor in here. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. It's supposed to be a video there, but let's change the angle here. So now let's stretch out the chest, okay? So I'm just gonna get down here a bit. So you wanna pull, now be very careful because your neck muscles are very tight and tender. So let's just pull to one side. Don't really pull your head down because then you might not watch the webinar after this. Deep breath in. Exhale. All right, now the other side. Slowly pushing it down, not too much. You should feel like if you're about to, tear the muscle, then that's too much. So ease off a bit. Big inhale again. Exhale down. Okay, now we'll go back to the other side, but this time we're pulling our chin down to our chest. So in other words, try to do a triple chin, right? The very ugly triple chin look, basically. But basically, you just want to pull it down. You should feel it right around here, the back of the neck, behind your ear. Exhale. Now to the other side. Inhale and exhale. Again, guys, I hope you're joining me so that I don't look stupid doing this by myself. Yeah? All right. Now up. And exhale. Good. So really want to stretch the neck because, again, that's the top of our head. And if we're always on our computer like you are right now, you might be looking down like I am here where you could see your brains pretty much from your nostrils. So if your angle is that way, then you definitely need to stretch your neck. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. Shoulders. Okay, so again, think about a T-Rex. So hopefully there's one thing you get from this webinar from me, T-Rex. Typing like that. So our shoulders are rounded when we're typing like a T-Rex, right? So we need to pull that back. So I'm just gonna show you here. Pull back. So squeezing the shoulder blades together. If you want to be extra like I am, then you bend and hinge from the hips as high as you can. Let that blood flow through your brain, because very smart people talk, and I'm here just for comedic relief. All right, now I just move side to side. You might even feel on your hamstrings. If you have any issues, then don't go down. If you have emotional issues, then don't talk to me. Just kidding. All right. Now we could also do it from the side, or I'm just humbly flexing my arms here, pulling up and back down. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. So hopefully that energizes your shoulders. Now we're going to get into our lower back. All right, let's move on to the next slide, please. So if you have any lower back issues, I personally, I used to be a personal trainer, right? But now I manage a team of fitness coaches, and I usually feel this on my lower back when I'm typing away like a T-Rex. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Now we're going to get into, so I'm going to show you some exercises for the lower back that will strengthen it, right? So earlier we just lengthened our muscles. Now we're going to strengthen the muscles. So when you're exercising, like you're flexing my biceps here, you're contracting the muscles. Now what we want to do is reverse that, okay? So let's move on to the next slide, please. All right, so this is really good for people who are on the computer a lot, because again, you have that forward head posture going. So the wall lean is basically going back to the triple chin again, guys. So what you want to do is tuck your chin under, all right? I don't really have a wall here to do that, but for comedic relief, let's try it on this beam over here. As you can see, my chin is pushing against the spine of my neck. I have a few steps away from the wall. So let's use this beam right here. Yep, this kind of works. I hope you can see me. My keys, just let me know if you guys can see me. Okay, so if I do this wrong, pull forward. So again, triple chin down to your neck, squeezing your shoulder blades together. Hopefully you're against the wall and a stable wall, because then you fall through. Don't want that. But if that happens, please record it so I can have a good laugh with you guys. All right, so squeezing your shoulder blades together. Ideally, you want to do this for 90 seconds. Squeezing. And you don't want to cave in like so, okay? You really want to squeeze the shoulder blades together and pull it down. Hold for 4 more breaths here. The more you step forward, the more you work your neck. I can't do that right now because I would fall forward. Okay, 1 more breath. All right. So if you did that with me, and again, not eating your chips or having a drink right there, you would feel like your head is really lighter, because I'm just going to show you from an angle here. if you have a forward head posture, your back, your muscles on the neck, right, the back of your head, is constantly trying to pull your head back. But because you did that exercise, your head is nicely balancing on the top of your spine. So you actually feel lighter just by doing that. It's one of my favorite exercises. Like I said, 9-0 seconds. Okay, so that's the wall lean. Let's move on to the next. Cobra. Ooh, okay, this is gonna be fun. So the Cobra is good for your posture. Like I said, the lower back. Earlier we did the neck. Now we're gonna go do the lower back and the upper back. So this helps improve your posture. And here's the thing, ladies and gents. If you wanna be a better professional, if you wanna look and feel more confident just by improving your posture, numerous studies have shown that it actually makes you feel, gives you that self-esteem and what's the other word? Self-confidence. I already said that earlier. Okay, so what you can see here is your toes are off the ground. Let's move to another position here. So if you can, you have a nice space like I do here. This is my backyard. This is not the farm. Just kidding. All right. So we squeeze our shoulders together, lifting up as high as you can. You might feel pressure on your stomach. All right. That's really good for you because that's working your diaphragm because your stomach is pushing against your lungs. And your diaphragm is at the base of your lungs. Ideally, you want to hold this for 9-0 seconds as long as you can. Inhale up. Exhale down. All right. For time purposes, I don't think we should be doing 9-0 seconds. In other words, I'm just making up an excuse because I can't hold for 9-0 seconds. All right. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Actually, it gets harder. So if you thought Cobra was easy, the W Cobra is even harder. So if you have bad posture, if your shoulders are rounded, right, like you're really, really bad posture, then this will actually pull your shoulders even back. Not only that, but it works your lower back even more because your arms are further away from your lower back. So let's try this. Imagine you're trying to poke someone with your thumbs, right? Poking them their eyes if someone's right above you. Squeezing and breathing. If you want, you can go down and exhale. Let's just do that. And up on the inhale. Let's do 3 more. Inhale down. Exhale up. Or inhale up, sorry. Exhale down. One more time. Inhale up. All right. Next on. Who here is eating chips right now while watching me do this? Comment down below. All right. Y raise. This is how the YMCA dance was created by me. Just kidding. All right, Y raise is even harder. It works your lower back, not only that, but it works your upper back and your shoulders. So basically, in other words, you want to be Superman or Superwoman, right? Gender equality, guys. Inhale, up. Exhale, down. We'll just do 4 more of these. Inhale, up. Exhale, down. 3 more. Inhale, up. Obviously, you want to go at your own pace. Exhale, down. 2 more. Inhale up. Exhale, you're down. 1 more. Inhale up. And exhale, collapse. Just kidding. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Mikey, please do let me know when I'm running out of time. All right, we're gonna go back to the stretch. Mikey, I hope you're not eating chips there as well. All right, if you are seated all day because you have a desk job, this is really good, especially when you're working from home. This is a really good way to stretch your front this time, okay? So what we wanna do is drop on a kneeling position, right? So I have my knee down. Can't really show it on the video but you can check out the photo. So imagine I'm trying to push this knee forward, okay? From there, my 35-year-old knees are saying, put something underneath it, there. So there, imagine tucking your tailbone under, pushing forward, reaching up towards the sky, big inhale. Exhale down. 2 more breaths, inhale up. Exhale down. 1 more, inhale up. Exhale down. All right, now let's do the other side because you don't want to feel all wonky doing this. My dog in, if you can hear her. So here we go. We're gonna do it 1 more time. I'm just gonna change up the angle just for you. So half kneel, reaching up.
I should feel all, I'm working my left side right now, so I feel on my left side. Inhale up, exhale down, one more breath, inhale up, exhale down. All right, next slide, please. All right, last one. Mikey, I guess we're close to 10 minutes, okay. I'll give you two more stretches. So we're working on the hamstrings here, yeah? Hopefully you guys are not, maybe you finish your bag of chips just watching me doing this. Next time, please share. All right, so our hamstrings are at the back of our thighs right here, right? You're just gonna bend forward or hinge from the hips. Okay, don't try to, basically, don't try to round your back because your back is not where your hamstrings are. So just reach forward. If you have tight hamstrings, you can bend your knee and just come as far as you can. As you get deeper into the stretch, you just follow your breath. One more breath here and down. All right, let's do the other side. Again, folding from the hips, working the hamstrings, keeping your back straight, shoulders square to the leg that we're stretching. Follow the breath. I'm sweating already. One more. All right, one last stretch here. Last slide. How's that bag of chips, guys? Did you finish it yet? No, okay. Next slide, please. Maybe she's stretching, whoever's holding the slides. All right, glute stretch. This is one of my favorite stretches. I'm just gonna do this seated down, all right? Just because I have a nice little angle here. So I personally like to stretch my glutes because it's really tight all the time. So what you really want to do is just do a figure 4 position here. I'm assuming all of you are seated on a chair as well. Pushing the knee down, and then again, hinging from the hips. Keep your shoulders square to the ground, keeping that spine straight. Deep breaths. You're eating the back chips, you can do pretty easy, or chicharon, whatever it may be, or lumpia. All right, other side. Hope my feet are clean for you guys. Pretty organic here. All right, hinge from the hips. Push that knee down if you want to feel a deeper stretch. All right, that's it. Guys, I definitely broke a sweat. And
Jose,
there's a few other slides as well. Thank you. Were you eating, Mikey, when you were watching me?
I wasn't at all. Not at all. Yes, I'm
all right, guys, make sure you drink some water.
I'm sure
I would be eating right now if I could.
You know, everyone's heart pumping, whether they did the exercise or not.
Yes, it got me pumping for sure.
I honestly think we need more than 10 minutes. Kulang ata yung isang oras, no? Considering what we are collectively going through. But thank you for spending a few precious minutes with us, reminding us to be mindful of our bodies, how we move, how we position ourselves. We definitely need this now more than ever. And it's amazing what a few minutes of stretching can do physically and mentally. I'm very happy to announce that one of our raffle prizes is a 1-month coaching package with holyfit.ph. One lucky winner can get a holistic lifestyle coaching with Coach Jose's team of dedicated fitness professionals. And we'll tell you how you can get a chance to win later in the webinar. Jose, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you as well. Thank you, everyone.
We're not jealous of you at all right now. But take care. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. I would like to introduce you to someone who I think has discovered her purpose in life. I invited her to share her story, and I'm delighted that she answered the call. You can really tell that she loves what she does, and she is helping people in the process. She is a certified KonMari consultant. For those of you who do not know about the KonMari method, please do not Google it right now, but listen to her talk about her journey. She's the founder of Yorokobi, an organizing service that helps you achieve your ideal home. To talk about how we can spark joy in our lives, please welcome Renalyn Tan Castillejos. Renalyn. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, hello everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mikey, for inviting me. And thank you to everyone here for joining us this afternoon. I am Renelyn, and you can call me Ren for short. And what I do is I help people spark joy by tidying their homes. And I really loved how just seeing the earlier speaker teach you a lot of things in terms of how your body can be stretched and can be healthy. And it's the same thing with tidying. You really can't tidy a home if you are not physically well. So I think it's a good segue for me right now. And so I just want to share how my purpose in life, I discovered that I wanted to be a KonMari consultant, not automatic. It was also coming from my experience. So maybe I can just share something that will guide you. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the KonMari method of tidying. If you've watched Netflix and you've seen one of their shows called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, that's where you see Marie Kondo, who's a Japanese organizing consultant. She helps people tidy their homes. And for me, the reason why I got so much passionate with this method is because of this. And it's the fact that tidying can be a powerful reset, not just for your space, but really for your entire life. And to me, when I first heard about this, I thought that how can that be? How can that be possible if you're really just trying to move around your things, you're trying to declutter, you're trying to say goodbye and discard items. But I learned through my own personal experience that it's entirely possible. So the KonMari method really is a home tidying method that we use a very simple factor to consider, and it's asking yourself if every single item in your home sparks joy. And if it doesn't, then it's time to say goodbye to that item. So of course, it's not as simple as it sounds, but I hope that it's something that you also try to consider or ask yourself, if not everything inside your home sparks joy for you right now, then why is it still there? Why do you still give a specific space of prime real estate space in your home for that particular item? Don't you deserve a home wherein everything that you see sparks joy? What does spark joy mean? Spark joy is a very simple concept, and it doesn't actually mean that everything should make you happy, everything should make you laugh. It's something more than that. It's asking if all the items inside your home gives you value. So for example, as simple as a coffee maker, if it is very important because you get up in the morning, you make your coffee, and then you're up alive and awake and able to do all of the different things you need to do, then that means that your coffee maker can spark joy. So always ask yourself if an item gives you value. And in the same way, I know that this afternoon you've been talking a lot about purpose. And so can you just imagine if you already know your purpose and you're surrounded with so many items that are giving you value, then I think it's even faster for you to reach the goals that you have. Can I get to the next slide, please? And so here, this is me. This is me when I studied in April of 2018. I flew to New York to do a certification course with Marie Kondo. But this is only halfway of my story. So growing up, I really loved shopping, and bonding time with my mom would always mean that we would go to the mall. And sometimes even if we don't have anything to buy, we just look at little trinkets and then we buy and bring it back home. So growing up, I thought that it was just normal to have an excess of a lot of things. And so when I got married in 2016, I got married to someone from Batanes, and he's very simple, very minimal. So you can just imagine the adjustment period that we had. It's funny, every time I would remember the story when my husband would always ask me, why do we have 20 plates at home when there's only 2 of us and we don't even have visitors? And so that adjustment period in 2018, I guess, I wanted to just suddenly declutter my home. And I saw the book of Marie Kondo, the one that she's holding now, and you see it on the screen. And for 3 hours, I decluttered my bedroom, just my bedroom, not my whole home. And after those 3 hours, I was so surprised to finally see my space clear And after seeing my space clear up, I felt as if a lot of the blockages in my mind and a lot of the blockages that I couldn't work on towards fulfilling my dream, which was at that time, I didn't know what I wanted to do because I resigned from my 12-year job as a regional director for an international organization. And so at that time, when I saw my bedroom without any clutter, I told myself I want to start my own business. And now I'm helping people help organize the world through tidying. And so the photo on the right shows you my classmates. There were 80 of us when we did this certification program. And it's just nice to know that, especially now at this time where everyone's mostly at home, and usually I do face-to-face tidying. That's really the KonMari method. But now we have all turned into virtual. And I know that a lot of people who have been maybe challenged by the situation or experiencing challenges, they've been, some of them or most of the people I know have been turning into decluttering their homes and finally organizing and fixing their lives. And for any one of you here who's just asking yourself if maybe is it time to do decluttering, or is it time now to give yourself that moment of finally just organizing your home, then I would say yes, because you will definitely be able to experience so many benefits after you see your whole space clear up. And so there, if someone like me who loves shopping can actually now tell myself that I still of course go to the mall, well not now, but I'm still able to not deprive myself. But now every single item that I bring to my home, I'm able to ask myself, will this give me value? And I guess that's really just a very mindful way of looking into what do you bring into your life so that you get closer to your purpose, and so that you don't get a lot of confusion from the different distractions that may be facing you today. May I ask that we go to the next slide? And so since I don't have a lot of time, I know Mikey just gave me 10 minutes. So I want to share with you what are the essentials if you want to start tidying your home. So when you do the KonMari method of tidying, what's important is you do discarding first, and then storing will come last. But instead of sharing with you the exact tips, what I want to share with you are 3 elements that I realize is very, very important if you want to spark joy in your home, if you want to start tidying up and decluttering. And this is life, space, and comfort. So when you say life, space, and comfort, I want to ask yourselves, if you look around your home now, do you see all these 3 elements? And it doesn't matter if your home is in a condominium or in an apartment or in a big mansion. What's important is if these 3 elements are present. The first one is signs of life. Obviously now, if you've experienced the quarantine period, it's really very challenging. But if there is life, for example, like plants, or maybe some of you have pets, or because if you're living alone, it's always also important that there is this sign of life, so that you also get to be able to take care of, if not a person, a plant or a pet. The second is space. So when we say space, the reason why it's very helpful for people to do KonMari tidying is once they remove all of the clutter, then the space that they have becomes very, very valuable. And sometimes it's funny, after we finish a tidying, consulting with a client, people will sometimes say, Ren, I now have so much space. Does it mean that I need to shop now? But I tell them that just because you have space, it doesn't mean that you will have to replace the item. Sometimes you need to just enjoy that space so that you'll also be able to prepare yourself so that in the future, if you actually find an item that's beautiful or would need to be in your home, then you can have a space for that. The third element, the third essential is comfort, of course, because I don't know if you feel it. Sometimes you go into a beautiful home, but when you're inside that beautiful home, there's no sense of comfort. You feel as if you can't lie down, you can't sit properly, you feel like everything's so stiff. So if for you, the home is very, very important when it comes to finding comfort as well. So these are the 3 essentials. So hopefully, if you want to try to to say, am I on the right track? Try to ask yourself, does your current home now show life and has space and give you comfort? There you go. Next slide, please. And so, my dear friends, if you want to do KonMari tidying, I want to share with you just 2 very simple skills that you need to do. For some people, when they need to become a doctor or a lawyer, they spend years before they become that professional. But in tidying, you only need these 2 basic skills. The first one is the ability to keep what sparks joy for you and to discard the rest. So this might seem very simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to do. So if you now know if something sparks joy, or if something makes you happy, or if something adds value to you, then you can decide to keep that. But if it doesn't, then hopefully you will be courageous enough to say thank you to that item and discard it responsibly. I'm also a proponent of the message that whenever you discard anything, it's very important that you think of your impact to the environment. So I don't just want you to throw away all these items. Try to ask yourself, are the items you want to discard something you can sell online? Is it something you can donate to charity or your favorite church? Or is it something that you can give away to another person? But make sure that if you give away something to another person, that person actually wants it fully. I am guilty of this before because I have a lot of siblings. So before, when I don't want an item anymore, but I don't want to let go of it, I give it to my younger sisters, thinking that I was doing a good favor to them, only to realize now that that wasn't actually very nice, because I actually give them a non-spark joy item so that I can just keep the item. So just that, remember, if you want to let go or give someone an item, make sure they are fully willing and ready to accept it. And then skill number 2 is the ability to decide where to keep each thing and put it back in place. So what does this mean? Think of it this way. Think of it as you looking for a parking space for each and every single item in your home. Before the quarantine happened, where would you usually put your bag when you would go home from work or from school? For most people, whenever they go back to their homes, they would sometimes put their bags on the floor, on the chair, on the stairs. And so if you do that, you're actually not putting it back into its own parking space, because for tables, you need it for writing or for eating. For the floor, you need it for walking. For the stairs, you use it for going up and down. And so you have to try to ask yourself, where is the parking space for each and every single item in your home? And the great thing about this is, if you have all of this sorted out, then for example, if you come home from work and you're tired, you can still rest. You don't need to tidy up, but when you're fully rested the next day, because you know where every item goes, tidying up can be very quick. It can just take you 5 to 10 minutes because you know now where everything goes. So those are just the 2 skills. There's a lot more other skills, but for now, if you want to start tidying up, just think of those items. What is it that sparks joy for you? And if you don't want it anymore, if it doesn't spark joy, remember to say thank you. Gratitude is very important in the KonMari process. And second, make sure that each and every item in your home has a parking space. There you go. Next slide, please. And so there, since we don't have a lot of time, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to ask, I'd love to really just hear how your homes are, how you're doing, how it is sparking joy from you. And especially because we're talking about purpose, your home can be a really beautiful space for you to nurture that purpose, to nurture that culture that you want to happen. And I'm sure that Mikey has been generous in giving you all of these wonderful speakers. And I also just want to thank him for giving me this chance. I hope you follow me on Instagram at World of Eurokobi. Eurokobi is the Japanese word for joy. And so that's my own local brand. And once again, I really hope that you give yourself this privilege of having a tidy home, because you definitely deserve it. So thank you very much, everybody.
Renalyn, you just gave me so much joy right now, really. You did. I mean, because I personally love tidying. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing the benefits. It's amazing to learn how the simple act of cleaning, arranging, letting go of things, being grateful for the
Yes.
joy and the value it gave you before, how that gives you a sense of relief and even empowerment, right? To move on and to maybe think of or do better things. So thank you so much for inspiring us with your journey to being a KonMari consultant. I hope we have motivated a few of you to start the process. You know, obviously many of us are sheltering in our homes, and I believe it is important to ensure that we can create safe and nurturing spaces where all members of the family can thrive, whether they are working from home or learning at home. Thank you so much,
very
Renilyn.
much.
I'm also happy to announce that we'll be raffling off a free 1-hour virtual tidying session with Renilyn. So please watch out for the announcement on how to get this amazing prize. Renilyn, we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mikey. Happy tidying, everyone.
Bye-bye. Okay, thank you so much for staying with us. For those of you who are just arriving, we heard from 2 people that I believe have found their purpose. And so we're here to discover how we can maybe even start that in our own homes, in our schools, in our organizations. We call this next segment the interview, where we hope to spark thought-provoking, worthwhile conversations with men and women from different backgrounds to talk about the central topic, in this case, purpose. During interview, we hope that you can discover significant life lessons and insights and use these to craft a hopeful vision for yourself, your families, schools, and companies. We have an impressive panel of 4 educators. Our first panelist is the founder of Forestdale Educational Consultancy. She is a certified practitioner and practicum supervisor of choice theory and reality therapy. She's a faculty member of the De La Salle University College of Education. Please give a Zoom welcome to Angela Abaya Garcia. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Mikey. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here. You know, fun fact for everyone in our audience, this is the first webinar that you accepted since the lockdown. You've agreed to be a resource person. Ladies and gentlemen, she did this just for you, just for us.
You, Mikey.
Angela, what made you decide to do this all of a sudden?
One practical reasons, I've been very busy on a project for the past couple of weeks, and we're at that point where we're starting to wind down. I really did not want to do a webinar where I felt like, you know, I had so many things going through my head. So I felt like I was finally ready.
Wonderful.
And
so
other reasons that you know, which
I do. And so that's why all the more so grateful that you're here. Angela, how would you define purpose? And have you discovered your purpose?
Yeah, that's such a heavy question, Mikey. I think I don't have a single definition for purpose. I would rather talk about what it's not for me. Okay, purpose is not a job. It's not a vocation. It's not a feel-good thing where you feel like you're just, you know, giving back to the world. I think it's also difficult to equate purpose with the word calling, although I know that I have in the past used the word calling. The reason why I struggle to use the word calling to equate with purpose is calling seems to connote that there's one place that you're being called to. And that's where I don't actually agree. I don't think that there is one place, one job, one vocation that you're being called to. The scary thing about believing in that is, you know, if you feel like you've missed it, you will grow old feeling like you've missed it, right? So it's difficult for me to define it, but I will invoke my spiritual beliefs. I do believe that, I'm a Christian. It's hard for me to talk about purpose without invoking my spiritual beliefs. I believe that we are all made in the image and likeness of God. And when we are doing the things that make his presence more felt here on earth, then you're right smack in the middle of your purpose. When things come together and you know that you are doing something that brings God's presence closer to the people around you, that for me is purpose. So for now, it's where I am. I'm teaching. It could be different in 10 years from now. It's not one single job, but definitely it's the thing that brings his presence more real for the people around me.
That's such a profound answer. And I hope that, you know, we can help people kind of come to that understanding to that point also in their lives. A lot of people need this right now, not just what we're going through in this era, but you know, because of the uncertainty that everyone is facing. And so I'm really glad that you're here. We'll hear more from you in just a bit. Thank you so much, Angela. Up next, we have the Managing Director of Global Image Management. She is a registered psychologist, a licensed professional teacher, a graduate of the Academy of Image Mastery in Singapore, who is pursuing her PhD in educational psychology. Please give a Zoom welcome to Cara Agustin Crisostomo. Cara.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
It's really great to have you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. You know, you and your sister, Karen, and if I can just say, who is a Binibining Pilipinas Universe in 2002, you both have been doing such great work helping men and women develop their confidence and visual impact. That's such a very interesting phrase. How did you discover that this was your calling? And what does this all mean for you in the whole scheme of things, what you do?
You know, ever since I was younger, I've always wanted to teach. Let's put it that way. As growing up, my goal was to teach in a classroom, and then eventually I found myself in various organizations, may it be in government offices, may it be in private companies. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't this one thing that I was really aiming for. It just happened so quickly, and I did not realize it was there, and I just completely fell in love with it. So it's getting to know how to help people in terms of what can I do in building their confidence for their appearance, the way that they connect with others, their behavior, and their communication.
I think that's so important right now. Now more than ever, when we are deprived of physical, actual in-person interactions and engagement. And I think that's the challenge, to kind of how we can cut across also to others and how to make them understand what we do, why we do. And so it's really about presenting an image, I think, of confidence and empowerment. And so I'm really looking forward to finding out how we can do this and how we can also help people do this as well.
A lot of people really would talk to us about how they don't feel good in the companies, how they don't feel so good working. And that's where we tap into those different factors. So maybe there's something with how they appear, their visual impact is not there. Maybe it's something about their relationship with the others. Or I even go and ask them about their goals for their own profession, for their own jobs. Is this something that you really want? Do you wake up in the morning thinking that I'm happy to be here, I'm happy doing this thing, my job, there's this little thing that makes me, you know, want to do this day in and day out. So we really go through, we reanalyze, reevaluate. I help them reevaluate their lives and see if this is truly something that they want to do in their lives.
Thank you so much, Cara. And I'd just like to announce to everyone that our third and final raffle prize is one free virtual training session with Global Image Management. So watch out for that announcement. Terms and conditions apply, of course, for all our prizes. We're very excited to give them to you. Cara, we'll hear from you again in just a bit. Thank you so much.
All right.
So up next, we have the Program Director of the Junior College at the University of Asia and the Pacific. She holds a master's degree in educational studies from the University of Queensland in Australia. She's a licensed professional teacher and holds a certificate in family life and education. Please welcome Margot Mags Valdez. Hi, Mags.
Hi, good afternoon, Mikey, and to all our participants. Hello.
It's wonderful to have you as well. And I think your background provides a unique insight into our topic. You started out as an early childhood or preschool teacher, and now you are molding adolescents in their senior year of high school. But first, I want to ask you, did finding your purpose have anything to do with your transition?
Definitely. I think that finding one's purpose entails a lot of experience. So it's a lot of personal experience, and it's really experience that teaches you which path you'd like to take. So in my career, I started out as a preschool teacher, and while I loved being with children because I understand the value of the formative years, in early childhood, I realized that if I really wanted to inspire, motivate, and mold young people and to become productive adults who can effectively contribute in society, I was teaching the wrong age group. So that was how it came for me. Like, my purpose was clarified when I explored taking my master's in Australia, and then I learned all about positive youth development and also the importance of adolescent development and how we as educators and adults working with adolescents really help them thrive and grow to become successful adults. And for me, that was how my purpose was clarified. It was really through an experience firsthand of how it was to teach young children, and at the same time, eventually, how it was to teach adolescents.
I completely understand, because I work with a lot of early childhood teachers, and so we understand the importance of their role, how they're building the foundation, getting a head start on the building blocks toward what you just described. But I also completely identify with what you just shared, which is when you're with these older students, these adolescents, the conversations that you have, just the different projects and the different discussions, really it's more enriching, I think, in a sense. And so I truly believe, I congratulate you on staying true to your purpose, and I hope that we can spark as well that motivation in the rest of our participants. And so we'll hear from you in a little bit, but first we have to introduce our final panelist. Thank you so much, Mags. So our final panelist is the managing partner of the Fourth Wall Global, where he specializes in company culture and design. He is a certified Lego serious play facilitator with a PhD in organization development, and he is a sergeant at the United Nations Command Military Armistice Commission. That's a mouthful, where he received intensive training in military psychology. Could you please help me welcome, please, Dae Lee.
Hello.
Hi, Dae.
Hi. Sorry, hi.
You look like you just woke up. Is that
No, it's a Korean thing.
Look, it's a Korean thing. Wonderful. For all those who are into K-drama, this is your guy. Yeah, connect with him.
I don't know anything about K-drama.
Neither do I. But that's an unpopular opinion, so let's not even start.
Okay.
Dae, you also can hopefully provide some unique insight into our topic. Now, I was able to catch one of your webinars before, and you said something very interesting. You said, don't follow your passion. What exactly did you mean by that?
Basically, passion is something that is very fleeting, that I would say. Studying behavior before, passion is something that always changes, and it's also based in emotions. And just to give you let's just think what purpose is for me first so that I can explain it. So for me, purpose is a commitment to an objective that can be pretty much achieved indefinitely or infinitely. Right? That's why I think I also agree with Angela a while ago, saying that it does not need to be one job. You can actually commit to an objective and achieve it in various different ways, right? I was actually, when you go back, Miss Mags was actually my boss before when I was teaching 6YP program. So anyway.
I hope you didn't receive a lot of memos.
So point here is, like, for example, my purpose, if I can summarize it, is really just making information simpler and easier to understand for people and organizations through different mediums, so that they can make better decisions. So that's basically it. So it's either I can be a teacher, right? I can be a university teacher, or I can be a corporate teacher. It still actually simplifies information and make them make better decisions. That's basically it. So I think I agree with Ms. Angela on that, right? And when you talk about passion, this is where I actually found about my purpose when I'm a millennial. So I actually really believed in the passion part. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was one of the people who actually loved what passion is all about. But when I went to the military, this was what was told to me by one of my lieutenants when he was getting mad at me and said that, your emotions don't matter if a bullet hits you, right? It's the value that actually you give to this space so that, you can survive and you can make the country survive. So that's the time where I started asking, okay, if it's passion, it's always about the question asking, am I happy with what I'm doing, right? But the
Right.
actual question that you had to ask, or I asked, that's why I was able to find my purpose, was really what value could I give, was something that I asked myself. And I said, okay, these are the skills and things that I can do. So I committed to them, which is basically making information simpler. And because I kept on just committing to that, you suddenly become very good at it and you start enjoying it, and that's what makes you happy. So it's external versus internal happiness. I think that's where I'm coming from. So yeah.
Right. I mean,
That's
all of
pretty
these
much
points are really awesome, and I would want to just delve into that deeper. I'm really very interested to find your thoughts as well on how organizations can actually do this. I don't know if this is the right term, but systematically, how to ingrain
sure.
this in their culture. So let's continue our conversation. I would love to call back, please, the rest of our panel, Ms. Angela Abaya, Cara Crisostomo, and Mans Valdez. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Look at those lovely smiles. They're really happy to be here. We are blessed that they are here right now. Okay, so let's begin with the first question on my mind, because in the research that I did about this topic, there seems to be a growing body of evidence to suggest that having a purpose can impact a person's health and longevity. In fact, one of the conclusions, and we're flashing this on the screen, that I've read is having purpose in life may motivate reframing to deal with stress and trauma more productively, thereby facilitating recovery. So when I think about this, I realize that there should be more discussion. There should be more development of programs that foster a sense of purpose in the way we live and the way we learn. So how do you suggest we start at home and in school? In the context of the family, I'd like to throw this question, please, to Mags. You're an early childhood educator. You work with families, their children who are in high school, still in basic education. How do we start that discussion? How do we start that practice where we can encourage, where we can foster a sense of purpose? How can homes be an incubator of purpose, Mags?
So I think the home is one of the most crucial factors in developing that sense of purpose. So it really begins with the parents, first and foremost, being able to help their children realize who they are, first and foremost. Like, it's always rooted to their identity, what values they have as a human being, and that's usually something we get from our parents, first and foremost, our culture. So I think a sense of identity is important. Even at a young age, I think, like, you can probably say that, what do young children know already at that point? But you'd actually be very surprised with my over a decade of experience working with preschoolers, how they are very much aware of what is good, what is not good, what is valuable to them. And that's mostly because of what the parents have really imbibed in them in the home. And this can also be reflected in adolescence. It's very clear with my work with senior high school students who comes from families that value spirituality, who values hard work, who values achievement. So it really begins in the home. The home is a very crucial factor in developing that sense of identity, which ultimately leads to a sense of purpose. And I think that for senior high school students, purpose is something that you can talk about more tangibly as compared to preschoolers. But for now, given the pandemic, probably purpose is a huge question in everyone's mind. I mean, not just for adults like us, professionals, but even for children and for teenagers. And I would recommend that in your homes, you always have to support each other in identifying precisely what is the reason behind all of this. And I think one way that we can really imbibe purpose is by having a routine. So in early childhood education, it's very much highlighted that routine is crucial in teaching young children. There has to be that sense of anticipation as to what would happen next. And this actually fosters, like the readiness of their brain for learning. So especially now with the pandemic, for those who have young children, it's important to give them that sense of security by giving them a schedule, a routine for waking up every day, wake up at the same time, have meals together. This is time for school, for online school. There's time for rest. And then there's time to reflect as a family. And this is applicable in all age groups, not just for preschool, but even for high schoolers. For me, like since I work with adolescents currently, that is something that's very supportive for teenagers. If they live in a home wherein they have that sense of routine, because we don't want our teenagers to spend their homeschool time, since we're not, it's not possible for us to have face-to-face learning, that they spend 3 hours on Netflix in the morning and reserve 1 o'clock to 10 o'clock for class. I think that's not very healthy, and it's not very helpful for them. So for those working with young people, it's important that you do have that sense of routine.
I really love what you're saying. And in fact, what I take away from that is in this sense of security and the sense of reliability and consistency in the home, they're more prone to maybe trying to discover, they have the confidence to really try and explore and maybe experiment a bit when they know that there are people there who are there to help them. And, having also that secure relationship where they can trust you. They know that you want what's best for them, that you're taking care of them, you're going to keep them safe. They're going to want to go out there and try different things. I think that's what I really discover from what you're saying. You mentioned working with adolescents. And so I'd like to throw this question to someone who loves working with adolescents. And in fact, there are a few under her roof right now, Angela. You have 2, right? How old are they, Angela?
Okay, my son, who was actually a student of Margot, is 21.
Okay.
And the other one is 11, going on 14. So yeah, I guess you can call her an adolescent. Definitely.
So how did you, in your experience, because, I don't think we can separate the fact that you're a mom, that you're an educator, that you are certified in choice theory and reality therapy. How did all these different theories, these experiences you had in the academe, were they helpful at all at home? Was there anything, for lack of a better term, successful or appropriate that really helped your kids kind of discover who they were, or at least was open to the possibility of discovering what they want to do?
It's funny that you asked that question that way, because the word that was in my mind was reframing. I think the ability to reframe is one of the most important skills that you can really try to train your children to do. And what we mean by this is not just take a situation for what it is, but having the capacity to see it in different perspectives, to see it in different views, and to stop and always ask, what is this moment telling me? So if it's, like we said a while ago, I'm so glad that Dr. Day said that it's not about passion, finding your purpose. If purpose really is going for a long-term objective, then definitely the skills that our children need are that capacity to take a moment and understand what that moment is telling you. So you may be struggling with something. What is this struggle telling you? So many parents are so good at trying to fix things for their children, and I wish they would stop. I really wish they would stop. My elder son, he's gone through many difficulties, and there were painful moments where I had to just intentionally choose not to meddle and just give him the message that, look, I will ask him questions like, have you thought about what you want to do? Do you have a potential solution in your head? And he's, I want to try this, I want to try that. Okay, go ahead. And he knows that I have his back. He knows that I'm going to be there no matter whether or not that decision works out right. The most important thing for me is he went through the struggle. He recognizes different perspectives. He knows how to look at things from different views, and he knows how to respond in different ways.
I think, Angela, I really love what you're saying. And in my experience and in the interviews that I've had also with other educators, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might be looking at this the wrong way, but the problem doesn't seem to be in the children kind of having the capacity to discover those things. There isn't an issue in a child's ability to get from A to B, but it seems to be the interference of probably adults in their lives, the parents, maybe some of the teachers, who cannot seem to, I don't know if letting go is the right term, but just what you said, letting them discover, work it out, to use their problem-solving skills. But on the parents right now, they really just want to do things for them out of convenience, or because they feel guilty that, oh, if people see that I'm not doing it for them, I'm not solving it for them, they're going to think I'm not a good parent. So again, it doesn't seem to be about the kids, it's about the adults, right?
Yeah, I don't
How do
want to
they
point
change
fingers. How do you change that?
You don't have to point fingers, just a hint.
I also teach teachers. I teach graduate teachers who are in our graduate program, a Masters in Learning and Teaching. So one of the things that I like to tell them is, if you sometimes leave the child alone, you will be so surprised at what they are capable of doing. You will be so surprised at the creativity that they are capable of doing. And I think my fellow educators are very familiar with the concept of zone of proximal development. Our role as educators, zone of proximal development is that area where it's a little past what the child has already mastered, but it's the area before the things that he cannot reach on his own. And I think that still applies for adolescents and even my 21-year-old son. I need to be very much aware of that zone where, just a little bit of scaffolding, just a little bit of help, I think he can get this on his own. But if I give him the answer and if I go ahead of him, he's not going to struggle. And he's gonna, he may make it a habit of just waiting for other people to solve his problems for him. I don't think that's how I want to raise my son. I think it's more of struggle with this right now, because later on you're going to have a whole bunch of bigger things to struggle with. In fact, I remember a story. I was working with a gentleman from the UK, and he was complaining that his 17-year-old son just kept making the wrong decisions. I said, aren't you glad that he's making these mistakes now while he's still young, before he has any real assets to his name, like his own money, his own car, his own house, a wife and children? And I think that kind of also reframed his thinking. Yeah, he was afterwards a bit more at ease about the bad decisions that his son was making at a young age, I believe. Yeah.
I also think that in this case, what comes to mind is kind of a partnership, especially at this stage, those who are still in their early developing years. It's very important there's kind of a partnership that develops in the home and in the school or in their learning space. There's no physical school right now, but many of our kids are still enrolled in programs. And so let's call it the learning space where they are. I'd like to ask you now about, in the context of formal education, because if the parents, if you train the parents to kind of reframe also their thinking and to maybe adjust their ways, so that they can empower their children to make these decisions. Sometimes when they go to these, with their teachers and their learning spaces, there might be things that they do, practices that kind of unravel these things, what you're trying to build at home. So I think a partnership is important as well. Could I ask, for example, Kara, I'd like to ask you from the perspective of being a mother, perspective of also being an educator. You also train the future teachers of our society. And so I'd like to ask you, what do you think we should be mindful of in these learning spaces about developing this kind of mindfulness, the building of meaning and motivation in our classrooms?
You've mentioned my several roles. And, as a mother, let me begin with that, because I know I heard, Mags, and it's something that I actually do at home, Mags. You were saying build a routine for the younger children. My kids are 7. I have a grade schooler, 7-year-old, and of course I have a 1-year-old. So his purpose in life is to make all of us happy at home. But for my grade schooler, It's really setting a routine for him, from waking up, from attending his online classes, having his lunch, doing some asynchronous tasks, and then having his time for himself, his sports, whatever he wants to do. We give that. So as a mother, we have to allow, as parents rather, we have to allow our children some allowance, of course. We have the routine, we've set the routines for them, but those are just really a guide for them to follow through, and then give them that space for a little bit of freedom. You know, this pandemic, yes, that sense of stress and anxiety, it took a toll for all of us. But what I just noticed, like in the news, on TV, what people talk about, when people talk about how stressed they are, na-realize ko, you know, we have to think also of the children. More than us, maybe they might be more affected in a way that they can't go to the toy store. That's one of the routines that we have every weekend. After church, we go to the mall, have lunch, go to a toy store. Whether or not I'll buy him something, as long as he sees a bunch of toys, he's happy. So it's ako personally, throughout these months, it's just letting loose, you know, letting loose, being kind. I had my routines, and Ange might know this. I sometimes get really intense with my routines. But then the pandemic has taught me to provide options for my kids, to my son, and then let him find what he wants to do for himself. Then as a teacher, however, you know, as a teacher, there's really a need also to stress out or communicate to the student. If you're unable to reach out to the parents, depending on the level of the students that you're teaching, you have to communicate as well. Para naman consistent, no? You have to communicate as well that they have to set the routines for themselves in order to build self-regulation. Because if, from the teacher's view, they help, they teach the students, but then hindi naman pwede afterwards, it's all over, it's all done. So there still is some guide that the teacher should communicate, may it be to the parents, but most especially to the students, that they know that they have to be accountable for whatever they're learning during synchronous sessions. So there.
You know, there's this, I really also agree with what you're saying. In fact, speaking of, you know, these educators and the parents just working together, if you've heard of Project Wayfinder in the United States, the founder is a man by the name of Patrick Cook-Deegan, and he lays out principles that he believes help students actively seek a sense of purpose. One of which is helping students understand why they are learning, what they are learning, to avoid boredom or anxiety. He also talks about internal motivation over external achievement. So if you ask him, dapat walang awards, walang ranking systems. No, he also encourages activities that encourage collaboration rather than competition. So they work together rather than trying to, you know, perform better than their peers, have the higher grades. And he also talks about how teachers should become more of mentors and coaches rather than just being transmitters of knowledge. Kara, what do you think about this last advice when he talks about how teachers should be more of mentors and coaches? How do they even get to that place where they can also provide that kind of care and quality of relationship with their students?
You know, what I do in my class, you know, at the beginning, although teachers tayo, we always have this goals for every session that we sometimes get so stressed out that we have to complete them, achieve them at the end of the week, at the end of each session. But you know, at the beginning, what I do is I let my students speak out about how they are, not related whatsoever to the lesson. I check on them, and I do it weekly. or whenever I feel, I sense that there's really a need and I sense that stress from the other end, we do not know what our students are experiencing, however their home situation is, however their emotional, psychological situation is. So it's important to pause, pause for a bit, get to know, check on them before we proceed to whatever our goals are for that session or for that week. So that's one thing that I do, and that's one thing that I also see. In fairness to my son's school, I see all the teachers ask the students how they are, what did you do over the weekend, can you show us a toy for today. For the first 5 minutes, some volunteers will share their favorite toy, and I saw how my son enjoys it. Then afterwards, there's that sense of motivation to listen, to participate in the synchronous session.
That's really amazing, and I hope that we can also help other teachers become what they need our students to be. I'd like to pivot this to Day. Day, so you, well, of course, you are an educator and you work with companies in terms of kind of looking at their organization and I guess maybe what areas they can really develop, in their organization to encourage motivation. And so I'd like to ask you what you think about this. We talked about how teachers are mentors and coaches. Is there anything that the leaders should be mindful of? What kind of things should we start in our organizations to encourage this?
I think there's no difference between a leader and a teacher, I would say, right? Honestly, it's coming from my experience. I would say that I hated school before. I hated the education system really, really badly because I wasn't good, right? I wasn't good. And where that's coming from is because of the fact that they wanted you to do something a certain way, right? And if you're not good at that in a certain way, then you start telling yourself, oh, I am not good at this. I don't think I'm enjoying this. And they really make you feel that way, right? And I guess the annoyance made me become an educator and say, oh, I wanted to do it right. And what I realized is that teachers or leaders, one very powerful thing that you have is what we call questioning. And I'll even go deeper into that and say calibrated questioning. So you calibrate your questions. So you're asking questions to see how they will tackle something, because all of us tackle things in a different way, right? And then that's where you can find, oh, this person tackles this kind of problem in this certain way. Okay, what are the skills and values that this person actually gives through that? And maybe build it from there. And that's what organizations, I think, and even teachers have to do. Understand those things and create that environment. Not just an environment wherein it's a cookie cutter thing. There are, I will be very, very, I'll tell the truth that you also need some cookie cutterness in some areas. I would be very honest with that. But if it's just mentoring and coaching, calibrated questioning is one of the biggest or even the most important thing that you can actually have as a tool.
Yeah, so letting them discover who they are and be who they are, and maybe try and discover also what they feel they should be doing to help their students, to help their families. Not really someone kind of dictating how it should be approached, just really having that openness, in the organization. When I was reading the different principles that Project Wayfinder recommended for students to seek purpose, a lot of the things I also kind of associated that with organizations. Would you agree with that? We do away with these rewards, we do away with these incentives. Teams should collaborate instead of compete with each other. Do you agree with that kind of approach?
Honestly speaking, I think there should be a balance still. Right? There should be a balance still. It can't be fully that there is no ranking, there's no hierarchy, there's no, it can't be that. At the same time, it can't be all, good and So, I mean, we're living in the real world. So, both there has to be a balance, right? Yeah.
Angela, you work with different organizations as well, and of course you are an educational consultant. Is that the same opinion that you have? And whether in the context of schools or in companies, what do you think?
I keep bobbing my head up and down because I agree 100%.
You're gonna hurt your neck.
If I could just bob it even more, right? You know, you have to be cognizant of what the reality is. I wish that all schools could get rid of ranking. Don't get me wrong. I wish that all schools could just focus on the learning and how children are learning. I wish we didn't have to assign valedictorian, salutatorian. But there are some sad realities that we need to understand. One is if you have a class size of about 45 to 50, maybe even 60 in some contexts, it's so difficult to be very learner-centered. It's so difficult to see, you know, where's this individual at? What is this child learning? I have to use systems that will be the quickest way of, you know, finding out how this child is doing. So that's going to be a pen and paper test. That's going to be a quick graded recitation. So as much as I wish we could get away with rewards, you have to also be cognizant of the bigger system that we're in. Even the system of declaring the top notchers of board, you know, it's something that's big. It's not a bad thing. It's a source of pride. So it goes down to culture. It's a source of pride, not just for you, but for your entire family when you achieve things. So, you know, asking us to get rid of certain rewards is really asking us to revamp systems and culture, if you think about it.
I agree with Day and Angela. You know, like we have to be very realistic. As much as we would want to avoid that spirit of competition and all that, that's what we're faced with. So I think as educators, the challenge really is for us to really make sure that our students are engaged in meaningful learning activities. We do not teach to the test, and we do not want to instill in our students that mindset that you're in school because you're going to be tested, because when you get tested, you'll graduate with honors and then you'll get a job. So more than anything, what we want to imbibe in our students, I think, despite all these, you know, difficulties in the system, is that love for learning, number one, that sense of self-discipline. I think values formation is crucial to education because it can really help you in other aspects of your life. And the best way you can learn that is through your experiences in school. So formation and that love for learning, critical thinking, these are skills that you cannot necessarily quantify. And I think that's what standardization does. It attempts to quantify the level of learning of a student, when in reality, if you look at it, it may not be an accurate reflection of one student's knowledge and skills and capacity to understand concepts. It is possible that the student just is not good at taking tests, which happens most of the time. But if you engage them in a regular conversation and ask them to show you what they've learned, they come up with very amazing things. So I think as educators and as leaders in organizations, it's important for us to have that mindset that human beings cannot be easily quantified, you know, their skills and capacities. Although we do need it in the real world because that's how we, you know, in organizations, we have the ranking system. It's important so that we keep, you know, like a balance. It's kind of like a check and balance. In the education system, it's the same. We just want to make sure that our students are performing these learning outcomes that we want them to achieve. But I think at the heart of it, it's just more of a paradigm shift of really seeing the potential of each person and not being so bogged down if they fail to achieve those, because we've heard of a lot of success stories like Mark Zuckerberg, you know, like hardly finished university, I think, or like Bill Gates and all these Steve Jobs and all these amazing, you know, innovative people. And I'm not saying that, you know, for all the teachers here that, you know, basic education is not important or college education is not important, but we have to understand that we cannot use that against them if the system is not at their advantage. So, yeah.
Right. You know, all the things that you said, because you mentioned something that also really resonated with me when we're talking about assessment, when we're talking about evaluating people. In the organizations that I have also been able to engage with and to work with, that is one of the frustrations that both the people who are employees, who are part of the workforce, and those who are in leadership positions, they really don't know how to kind of reconcile these different standards and how to help people reach those standards. And so one of the things that I've seen, this is a 2018 Global Talent Trends study by a company called Mercer. And this was a survey of 800 business executives, 1,800 HR leaders, 5,000 plus employees across 21 industries and 44 countries. And so Mercer identified factors that employees and job candidates are looking for in a company. So they talked about workplace flexibility. They talked about a commitment to health and well-being. One of the factors was working with a purpose. And so it would seem to me that organizations have to take this idea of kind of purpose and meaning seriously. Because it does have an effect on the growth of an organization. It does entice a good workforce for their company. So I would like to ask Day, going back to Day, what would it take for an organization to really just inculcate in the minds of of the people who work for the organization, the idea of connections, the idea of serving not just the self, but of others?
Okay, I would always say that if you are doing your job, whatever your job is, very, very well, you're actually, doing CSR, basically, put it very, very simply, right? One thing that companies, I think, from my experience, don't get it focused is that it's all about clarity when it comes to this. You can say that it's purpose, you can say it's meaning, but all companies always say, oh, let's do this for social good. Oh, let's be number one. Oh, let's be for the people, do something for the people. But what what companies don't say is that number one, or being excellent, or being having the standards of excellence is completely different from a person to person, right? My being number one, maybe I just come on time every single day, right? Someone else's number one is reaching their quota and being at least number two in the ranking or something like that. But I think purpose comes from the clarity of what that organization wants to do. For example, a logistics company, to give you a very, very good example, a logistics company can say that we are going to be the biggest number one logistics company in the world. That's their purpose. That doesn't honestly mean anything, really. But if you say that you're a logistics company and you absolutely, positively have to deliver overnight, that already creates something. That already means that if you want to be number one, you have to absolutely, positively deliver something overnight. And that actually leads your people to think of different ways to deliver this overnight. Okay, how am I going to do this to achieve that pretty much goal, right? So that can actually even lead to purpose. The moment that that person understands that, let's say, goal, it actually becomes a purpose for the company, and it actually helps the people around them because someone got the package in the right time, blah, 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 and so on. So clarity versus being overarching goal or vague. That's I think one of the things that people forget to do, right? So that's one of, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's what I thought of when you said that purpose. It really doesn't matter to, sometimes they think because it's supposed to be very flowery words, but it can be very clear and simple. That's pretty much it.
Right. Oh, I love that. Kara, do you feel the same way? Is that the problem here, that they are not able to connect, to communicate that to the people from the top all the way to those who are the frontliners and the grassroots level? Is that the issue?
So the first thing that I find really important for companies to engage in is that sense of communication. So I think that's quite related to what Day was saying in terms of setting that clear, clarity of goals, of what they want for their employees. Communication is really key. You set your expectations, you communicate them well down the line in the hierarchy of the organization. You, of course, for every company, you have your own set of vision, mission, your company values. And from the company, usually when I do training, we go to the employees. So down to the employees, I go back to them, I check on them, and I ask them, however the company has presented, communicated their values, their mission, their modeling to all of you, Do you feel like it's something that is clear with you? Do you feel like it's something that is also in line with your own values? Then if it's clear and it's in line with your values, then hey, you're good to go. You would find your daily activities worthwhile, your job every week worthwhile. But if you feel like whatever is communicated to you and you yourself is, there's something that's not right, there's something that's not in line with your own set of beliefs or your values, then reevaluate, analyze again what you are going through and if this is right for you.
I love that. I hope that the leaders and the managers who are here right now are hearing that very clearly. Angela, if there's anything, if you were to kind of come up with this guide on, how to manage the people, the talent, how to develop these organizations, how would you do? What would it highlight?
I think I'm going to go back to the word reframing. And it's such an important word for me right now. I think when we teach people how to find the value of what they are doing, it gives them so much more energy, so much more life. And in some cases, let's be honest, in some cases, I may not necessarily be aligned with the company's vision and mission. At the end of the day, it's just a paycheck for me. So what we need to help maybe people like that is to understand that that paycheck helps you to take care of your family in the way that you want to take care of your family. It gives you the freedom to do the things that you love to do. So, if I were working in big companies in this, in a capacity of organizational development, I think it's really understanding that people have different needs and helping them see how those needs may or may not align with the company or, the bigger picture of the company. But you're there for a reason, and if you can find that reason, even if it's being able to bring home money to your family, then be grateful for that job. Again, it's the word reframing for me. It's all about reframing. How I was talking to somebody who was very, very just dissatisfied with her work already. And I think when I said, okay, so if you're so dissatisfied, why aren't you leaving today? You can leave today. You can hand in that resignation. And then, she goes about, well, wait a minute, I've got bills to pay. So I said, it was a choice that you're making. You are constantly making a choice to stay at that job. So I think when people realize that it's a choice rather than this, it's a meme. It goes right. You've seen it on Facebook. It's not what I have to do. It's what I get to do. When we have more people in that kind of a mindset, I think that helps in so many different areas, at work, in the family, in schools.
Mags, picking up from what Ange said, how can companies, help families? Holistically, really, because, at the end of the day, they go through so many, worries, and it's just, how can we create a healthier environment? How can a company prioritize well-being and I hesitate to use this word, but health and happiness of the people, and balance it also with the bottom line?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think there's one solution, not probably the only solution, but one key factor there is empathy, first and foremost. And I think that empathy goes a long way, especially during this time of pandemic. We have to put ourselves constantly in the shoes of our personnel. So in my case, I work with 40 teachers who come from different backgrounds. Some have children, some live with, their elderly parents, and they have their own struggles. And especially during this time, I think empathy is something that we can really foster among ourselves, especially our leaders who are on top, who can really set that culture of genuine care and interest for other people. And the second thing that I'd probably recommend is that culture of dialogue that you would have in your own organizations. In schools, that's very much important. I would like to keep an open line of communication with my students, especially now the dynamics of learning have changed so much. I need to have an open line of communication with parents, students, and teachers. And I think if we just practice those two, empathy and a culture of dialogue, we can really get through this pandemic and hopefully come out of it better teachers, students, and people.
Max, I really love that. And in a utopia, that is how it should be. But some may be wondering, and actually I'm wondering the same thing. What if, okay, they don't have this leader, they don't have this champion for purpose, and empathy, whether it's at home or in school or in the workplace? I'd like to ask the panel, do you believe that it's okay, that it's realistic for them to take just personal accountability where they do not depend on, someone else? They're not other directed, they're not other dependent, they become more self-directed and self-reliant, that they can become agents for their own development. Is that possible? Is that feasible? I'd like to throw that question maybe to Dave first.
Okay, sure. I think it's understanding how human behavior works, right? Human behavior works. That's the core thing here. So it feels like I prepared for this, but not really. I just thought of this now. So this is what we call the flow state. It was done by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I cannot spell his name because I'm Korean. Anyway, basically it just says that this is skills, pardon my handwriting, and this is challenges. And I think this is very useful also because this is how I was able to find out pretty much, whatever I wanted to do, right? Basically, this just says that if your challenges are over here, too high, but your skills are too low, what happens here is that we get anxiety, right? And then if your challenges are too low, but our skills are too high, it's in this area wherein we get bored or boredom, right? And basically, it is a balancing act of getting to what we call the flow state. So it's the optimal level, they say, of learning or doing something great. So if ever you feel that your challenges are over here, it's taking a step back and looking, okay, where are my skills? My skills might be here. That's why I'm having anxiety right now. Okay, what are the skills that I can actually put more into my whatever brain, let's say, to be able to at least match it and so that it will be here. And sometimes our skills might even overpower it, right? And go out of the flow state. That's when you say, okay, based on my purpose or based on what I want to do, okay, what are the challenges that I could take to put this over here again? So it's a constant, really, balancing of getting to this flow state over here. And this has been very, very useful for me, for someone who hated education, taking up master's, PhD and all these things and actually teaching to people. It's because of this. I realized that it was the challenges and how to get there. Oh, I have to be good at these things so that I could get to a place of safety where I'm not anxious or where I'm not bored. So that's basically what I wanted to say.
This is I love this. Another a master class within a webinar. Okay, so
sorry,
it's really interesting, and you, our audience just had a treat right now. Angela, do you feel that it's well, I mean, the reality is that we are affected, or there are several factors that can affect our way of seeing things, doing things, our motivations, our level of happiness on any given day. But can we take that control back? Are there habits that we can develop?
I think, wait, can I just say, I am so impressed, Dr. Lee, that you can pronounce this guy's name, okay? The theorist of that flow state, it's very impressive that you can even pronounce his name. Okay, I got that off my shoulders finally, thank you. Can we take control? I think we should. I really think we should. If you go through life living as if everybody else is making decisions for you and that things are outside of your control, you're really living a miserable life. Which is, the example I gave a while ago. If you hate your job, but you still go to it day in and day out, you're making a choice, and you have to understand that you're making a choice. You don't like what you're doing, but you're choosing to stay with the paycheck. And when you understand that you have made that choice, sometimes it feels a bit more empowering and you are a little bit more motivated. And as an educator, as a parent, as an educator of educators, that's one of the things that I think is so important for us to keep on teaching people. It's that you are always constantly making choices, whether you are aware of it or not. It's not somebody else who's dictating things. Maybe there are a few factors in your life that were outside of your control, but you can totally choose how you respond, how you move forward. And the things that are making you miserable, you know, you can totally choose to get out of it. If you choose not to get out of it, it's because there is a higher value that you are choosing at the moment.
You're talking about, you know, choices and choosing at the moment. There are people who perhaps are very relentless in how they pursue their beliefs, their purpose, and you know, that might put them at odds with others. You know, conflicts are can happen. Some situations, it's inevitable. There's miscommunication, may tampuhan. I personally think conflicts can be valuable. You know, you're bringing problems and different viewpoints to the surface. You're bringing it to light, and I think that can be a healthy process. But Kara, can I ask you, what have been the best practices you believe in addressing conflict, so the why of your work is still reinforced, but you're able to handle it with respect and goodwill?
So the people that I have encountered, like what I mentioned earlier, they do talk about those challenges that actually stress them out. Some would like to give up, some would still pursue out of maybe Angela, what like Angela was saying, it's a choice. Some would even say that they don't have a choice, so they should talk to you, Angela. Um, but then I tell them, you know, everything that you do there is a choice. You being here is a choice, but it's really up to you on how you attach the meaning to the actions, to your actions. Not everything can be all colorful. Not everything is a rainbow. Everything that we do, there will always be maybe that sense of conflict, those stressors, challenges. But if you feel like those challenge, those conflict, you nuances in life, how we would put it, you know, if you find meaning in it, you will eventually rise above it. So no matter how small or how huge the meaning that you attach to your actions or to the situation, but as long as it's there, you will always find yourself pursuing a goal, pursuing your purpose.
You know, I think also when it comes to the context of the home, the parents, the family, because you do have this purpose, it can vary from family to family. I'd like to talk now about maybe handling, still on the topic of, you know, conflict resolution. Right now, you're trying to strike a balance between what needs to be done and how to also live peacefully at the home. There's a question here from the audience, and she's asking a very specific question. I'd like to throw this to anyone who would like to answer, from our educators. As a mother, how can I motivate my son, who is 5 years old, to study his lesson rather than watching YouTube? To be honest, it has been hard for me to convince him to study. What do I do? So she talks about giving rewards. Should she give rewards every time he does his work? Will that do the trick? Maybe Angela.
I get that question a lot, and it's a very, very difficult question. Anything that involves gadgets just drives me up the wall. There's a lot of research in the field of neuroscience that talks about really that gadgets do have an addicting factor to it. And if you can, as a mother, put your foot down and put some parameters around gadget use, please do. I see way too many mothers who are afraid to do hard love. But if you can, as a mother, please do. I'm going to go back to what Margot said a while ago. Routines, getting them used to doing things that they may not be happy with sometimes. It's hard love. But you would rather be dealing with that with a 5-year-old than that 5-year-old growing up into a 15-year-old, getting used to certain things that will be much, much harder to deal with later on. But that's just one aspect. That's just one aspect. When you talk about motivation, it's such a big word because there's so many factors involved. You have to, number one, be very clear about what you believe about how learning should be. if you think that you're okay with the kind of school where there's competition, where they prepare them for the real world, there are really some parents who believe in that, and inevitably they're kind of okay with the reward system. And there are some children who, I'm just to be very, very honest, they respond better to external rewards. They don't really understand, and they do not yet have the capacity for that long-term thinking of, you can't tell a 5-year-old child, this is going to be for your own good. When you're 15, you're going to thank me later. No, the kid wants his iPad now. So a certain degree of reward sometimes work, but please do not focus your parenting on rewards. Do not use the gadget as a babysitter. Do not get the child used to these external things, and try as much as possible to work with the teacher to help the child find the fun in learning. If your child is not interested, one thing you can do is check, are they just getting sent a whole bunch of worksheets from school? That's probably the reason why. That's probably one reason why. But we as educators, we really have to, our goal needs to be, we need to make learning fun again. We need to make learning where children get that aha moment. They are in the flow, in the zone of proximal development. They're in that period where they struggle and they feel so much satisfaction when they finally get the answer on their own. If we can just restore that love for learning that way, then I think that really is the purpose of an educator.
Wonderful. Max, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think Angela pretty much covered what I was about to say. Like, at this age, 5 years old is very young. They usually function best with rewards. Like, in preschool, they behave well because they know they're going to have playground time if they sit through circle time. And, if they're very gentle with their classmates, they can play in the blocks area. But if they throw blocks to their classmates, you give a consequence. You remove them from the block area. So that's how young children learn. So it's really about adults really providing that system of consequence, basically, like for them to understand that each behavior has a consequence. And I totally agree with what Angela mentioned, and it's related to what they mentioned. We need to get children in that state of flow. And I think the iPad and YouTube is a very tough competition, like if you have an iPad and it does whatever you want it to do and you get so motivated by it, it's really hard to make them do anything else. So my challenge for parents is to really find out ways on how to get children involved. So I have nephews who used to be like really YouTube addicts. They would watch YouTube all the time. And then when I came to babysit them one weekend, I just pulled out like a tub of water. I put food coloring, a bunch of cups, and some plastic animals. And they loved it. They were there for like an hour. I had to pull them out until their fingers were raisins already because they were soaked in water for so long. So I think it's more of a challenge of really trying to get children engaged. And especially in the early childhood phase, what's most important is not the YouTube stimulation that they get. It's actually the sensory experiences. So there's a lot of free play. Make them play with blocks. Make them get bored, because that's how creativity develops. Their creativity does not develop when it's constantly bombarded with visual stimuli and sound. So let's go back to the basics. Like, we grew up without it and we managed, and now that we're in this digital, world and they are digital natives, we have to be more intentional with how we can strike that balance. And one way is to make sure that we make things more interesting for them. Cook with them. If you have a coffee brewer at home, collect all the coffee grounds, dry them under the sun, put like spoons and forks and cups, and they can, develop math skills there. So there's a lot of things you can do.
I just wanted to add lang with Mags earlier, because I know we have a lot of educators, a lot of parents who are listening in right now. And it just, I realized 5 years old, I was just about to say that it's also important for the parents to model. I know it's really nice what they have shared, Angela and Mags, about keeping things interesting, love for learning, giving them all these options. I tried that, and then I tried many things. As parents, you experiment with a lot of strategies. And one thing that I realized, especially at that age, you have to also dedicate time to do it with your child. It's not enough for us to say, no gadgets for now, maybe later, do this, do that. I have these activities set for you. go do this. But if you're not engaged with them, they won't. Trust me, I tried it. They won't.
Thank you for
they
being
won't
honest.
do it. Like what I said, as a parent, there's a lot of experiments that I did dab on, especially for my first child. So, yun lang, just engage and be part of that experience with them, especially at that age, 5 years old.
Day, I'd like to talk to you about this. Is it really appropriate, I guess, for us to be focusing on this whole topic of purpose, this topic of meaning and motivation, when we know that there are so many harsh realities plaguing our country and all over the world? We're talking about unemployment rates or underemployment rates. We're talking about the satisfaction ratings or the happiness index of people getting low. And so, I mean, how do we communicate the value of what we're talking about, I guess, in the real world? There's also something from a question from the audience. So Odessa is describing this situation because many of the employees in her organization turned to online selling to earn extra income when the crisis began. The company does not, of course, allow buying or selling during work hours, but it happens many times. It's extra income, obviously. And she's worried, that they tend to be less productive at work. And when their attention was called, apparently some of them got offended. So, I mean, how do you handle this topic, this whole idea of what we're trying to communicate, when the reality is that maybe people can't even begin to wrap their minds about this because they're so busy, with their own problems or their own personal challenges?
I think I can connect it with care, having care for people, coming from the previous question. Like you said that, yes, sometimes I am not a parent, just to be very, very clear, but I'm just coming from human behavior, right? So that a lot of people talk about caring and, because I care about this person, I don't want to offend this person, right? And there's also so many things happening or people saying about self-care that, hey, we should treat ourselves nicely and all of that. But I think we have to first communicate, what does care really mean, right? And what happens here is that if you take care into context, in a different context, it becomes a form of escapism, right? What do I mean by that? Care, when you talk about care, it's always about preserving self or preserving others. I care for you, that means I want to preserve you. Basically, it sounds weird, but yeah. But care is also about facing the hard truth and dealing with it head on. And I think that's what we have to understand here. If the person is selling, gaining extra income, first thing that we have to ask, is this a reality or is this something that will go away? And my answer to that would be, it's a reality that won't go away, right? That means we shouldn't attack the selling. We should attack the performance because there has been a commitment or a contract that was signed that this person would actually do this at a certain time, regardless if he sells or not, right? I think that's what you have to be attacking head on. Okay, attacking is a very harsh word, but you get what I mean, right?
Well, you are a military psychologist. So.
I mean, so it's basically that. And it's not about attacking the person, right? Because if you say, oh, why are you selling, di ba bawal to? I'm speaking Tagalog, sorry. But this is not, okay, it's okay, okay. This is not
don't
allowed.
speak Korean though, because
Okay.
no subtitles.
Sure, okay, sorry. So yeah, it's really putting it out there and not attacking the person, but the action that the person's actually doing. And you already have a contract. You can start from there. Hey, it doesn't matter what you do. We can't really observe you, obviously, right? It's a reality of things. But here is what we committed to, right? Regardless of purpose or not, right? And that also brings me to purpose. Purpose is also that. It's a commitment. Regardless you are motivated or not, you will still do that. Honestly speaking, sorry, Miss Mags, I hated making lesson plans, you know this. But because the love of teaching is there, I would, I don't know, just go through it, you know, and do it because it's something that I committed to, right? It doesn't matter. Again, I would always say this, emotions are not a choice, but the behavior is. So I think we should tell people that also, that, hey, it's not about emotions. Emotions, you can feel this way, but how you turn that emotion into a behavior and action, that's really up to you now. So that's something that I would actually start with.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we would avoid a lot of headaches and heartaches if we just took that kind of perspective. Angela, this is the reframing, right? You were talking about a while ago. That's
It is,
kind of a
it is. But
practical
can I also add
application of it.
something? Can I
Yeah,
add one
sure.
more thing also?
Absolutely.
You know, why were we so reluctant to allow people to work from home? Why were so many employers reluctant to allow people to work from home? It's because they couldn't keep an eye on their people. They were afraid that they were going to not, you know, be able to monitor people. But the big question is, why are we the kind of culture that needs constant monitoring? And for me, you know, if we had another hour to talk about how this begins in the educational system, of when you have to keep track of every single child and prescribe for them how the output is supposed to look like, and not give them a little bit of freedom to make some choices and make some mistakes. You know, how we train our human capital, I think, is a very, very big question, because if you train them very well, they go out into the world, you can trust them even if they're not sitting, you know, right beside you. Why, you're an adult, why do we have to monitor you 24/7? Is, you know, that kind of thinking. I wish we had more of that kind of a culture where we can trust our adults to do the things that they need to do even when nobody is watching, and to get the job done, and not just sit around and wait for somebody to, you know, like sometimes they get stuck, but they wait for somebody to come and, you know, where is that output? Where is that report that I was working on? And they'll say things like, oh, sorry, I got stuck. And, you know, take initiative. Those are just some of the skills that you pick up in school that you take into, you know, real world, in the corporate setting, in real work. Those are the things I think that educators need to also be aware of and focus on.
Because you guys are so engaging, I did not even notice the time. 1 hour is really not enough. And in fact, I realize this is something that we won't be able to really comprehensively talk about, but it's enough, I think, that we've been able to spark this discussion. Hopefully they can go back to wherever they are, or if they're just working from home, they can just tap their wife, you know, beside them and say, hey, you know, I'm learning a lot. And I hope that we can really create just a change at home, and that will pour out to the organizations, our community, and the rest of society. I do have to thank the panel. You have been so wonderful, but that really is all the time we have. We still have to cook our dinners. Some of our participants are probably on their way home. They're just carrying their laptops and their mobile phones in traffic. But again, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We will attend to them as soon as possible. And we hope to see you again in our future events. But before we formally close, I'd like to ask maybe some last words, final words. That sounds so ominous, no? Especially in the time of COVID, wag naman final words, but inspirational na lang, inspirational lines, no? A one-liner that we can give to everyone in the audience watching, our friends, our tribe. You know, they might be physically distant from their loved ones. They might be having a difficult time adjusting to the new normal of work and home-based learning. Maraming mga tanong dito about home-based learning, oh. Buti na lang na-move daw sa October yung start of classes. There may be people who are struggling to find a community where they can succeed. Is there hope? Can they still craft their purpose? Let's begin with the youngest of the group, Kara. The precious Kara, yes.
Yes, sorry. There you go. One line, ang hirap naman nun.
Or two, or three.
Okay, so I know you have a mixed group here. So from the educators and from the people coming from private companies, like what I mentioned earlier, whatever you do, find some meaning into it. And as long as you find meaning to all of your actions, you will definitely find yourself confidently pursuing your goals. You'd be more motivated in pursuing all of your purpose in life. That's all.
Thank you, Kara. Mags, please.
So I guess for me, it's just during this time, it's important for us to realize that we have a lot to give. And being a gift to other people, it's probably the best thing we can do. we can give ourselves in our work, in at home, in our relationships, in our friendships. So let's try to be a gift to other people during this time. I think we can all do that. We cannot solve all the problems, but we can definitely be a gift to someone else. And I hope we can be gifts to others.
Thank you, Max, for being a part of this conversation. Day.
Okay, I thought one phrase, but let's go back to the purpose thing. So purpose, I can say that it can come from culture. And if we talk about culture, culture is a set of behaviors of particular people, right? In that area, right? And behavior are actions that actually worked for us in the environment that we are in. And when you talk about culture, I think we mentioned this a while ago, it's at its core, it's what people do with the lack of directives. When you don't give them direction, that's what people do. So if you're trying to change people, don't try to change them directly, try to change the environment that they are in. So I will want to share this quote, which is, when a flower does not bloom, don't try to change the flower, change the environment where it grows, right? So that's pretty much it, what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, that's lovely. Do you have more? Why don't we need that?
Nope.
Thank you, Day. Angela, please.
Na-pressure ako tuloy, kailangan maganda yun. I think as parents and as educators, let's please try to help our children and our students, no matter what age, even if they're old, adolescents, young adults. Let's teach them how to listen to what the moment is telling them, whether it's a struggle or a success. Let's teach them how to read what this moment is trying to tell me in the bigger picture of things. If you really want to raise children to be purpose-driven. But we can't teach our children that if we ourselves don't know how to do it. If you don't know how to read what a moment is telling you, if you don't know how to read what a failure is telling you, if you don't know what to think of about this pandemic, it's very difficult for you to try to pass it on to somebody that you're mentoring. So let's all just really learn how to learn to understand what the moment is telling us.
Thank you so much. All of our members of our panel, you have been wonderful. We hope to see you, your friends and colleagues for the next online gathering. And please follow our social media pages for updates. On behalf of the Eunoia Empowerment Group, Creo Early Learning Partners, Forestdale Educational Consultancy, and Global Image Management, thank you for being here. We also like to thank Coach Jose Villablanca and Certified KonMari consultant Renalyn Tan Castillejos for their special participation. From our hearts to your homes, rest well, stay safe, we celebrate and honor you all. Thank you for being here.